obviously, spoiler alert, but the folks and the Fairy Tales, the brand new book that's going to be released in just a few days, gave us some pretty big bits of information for the current Shadowlands storyline. Sylvanas' sister, in a dreamlike state, journeys through the Maw, where she finds that the soul of Sylvanas is shattered in much the same way as Uther's was. Obviously, this is huge information for the Sylvanas-Jailer relationship, so let's discuss what will this mean for the future of the Shadowlands, and is Sylvanas' redemption arc really incoming? Brought to you by Gamivo. Use my link to get Shadowlands in game time cheaper as well as any other game. Use code DORON for an additional discount. To start off, Sylvanas is, I'd say, initially one of the most interesting characters in the Warcraft history, but now one of the most confusing ones, and I'd say a bit of a train wreck, and a bit is definitely putting it lightly. I think she's mainly a victim of Blizzard not having a consistent narrative through the decades, as literally one moment she is this crazy psycho with no regrets, on the other hand then she remembers the old times and feels bad, which of course if done right is really a good balance of characters, so she isn't just a one-dimensional monster. But the issue is that Blizzard every year goes from this one-dimensional extreme to the other, so I really don't feel like they know what they really want to do with Sylvanas. So currently we really don't know what exactly is going to happen in the Shadowlands and how her storyline will finally end. Well, most recently, we learned that yes, all this stuff she did throughout the past decade was for the Jailer, and it was all a part of this huge plan to essentially break the Shadowlands machinery, essentially for the chest that no one knew anything about. However, pretty much since the initial cinematics and even in 9.1 trailer, we had seen Sylvanas hesitating and making these weird faces, which is more than obviously foreshadowing for either some type of a redemption arc or her ultimately betraying her master. Now, about a week or so ago, we got some half-leaked information, half-leaked because someone received the book earlier than the actual release date, but all of this is official information written and obviously printed by Blizzard. However, Blizzard wrapped this in sort of a dream, which I think definitely gives them a bit of a leeway to test the waters to see what direction they should go in, as, you know, if it sucks, they can just say it was just a dream, we never really intended it for that to be canon. So, what exactly is this dream that I mentioned? Apparently, Veressa, the youngest of the three Windrunner sisters, recounts this dreamlike state where she had ventured into the Maw and found the soul of Sylvanas. However, she realized that her soul was actually fragmented, having encountered the pure Ranger General High Elf. Then, Veressa had confronted the Jailer, demanding to take the soul back to the realm of the living because she is her sister, and then the Jailer kinda cheekily responds that only a piece of her is your sister, perhaps. Now, there isn't much other than this, but obviously this has huge implication for what will be the future, and I gotta say, it is a bit worrying as well. This of course isn't all too shocking, as after all, we knew pretty much since Warcraft 3 that Sylvanas was killed by Frostmourne, Mournblade, and the same thing was done to pretty much everyone struck by such a weapon. Their soul was split. However, what this could mean is that the pact with Sylvanas might not really be a pact as an alliance, but more like Zoal holding Sylvanas hostage and forcing her to do things, or she might be doing all this stuff just so that she can get her soul back, a part of her soul. Obviously, the motives will be revealed soon enough as 9.1 releases, but with this new information, it might not be the case that Sylvanas has been doing all this stuff just for power and personal gain. Ultimately, all of these bits of information might be a huge foreshadowing for a future betrayal and her possibly taking the fragment and disappearing, or even more worryingly, a potential redemption storyline. Despite the fact that it would be really cheap and cheesy, technically, Blizzard could totally just use this plot to fully redeem Sylvanas, as, you know, it wasn't her that did all this stuff, her soul was just split. Pretty much similar to how Uther was borderline evil and did things that he would otherwise not do, like throwing Arthas into the mob because he was not really himself. So Blizzard could totally say, yeah, it was a split soul Sylvanas that burned Teldrassil and not a pure souled Ranger General, which obviously worries me quite a bit in regards to what will happen to the lore. Now, of course, we all pretty much knew since the start that Sylvanas was a tragic character. She really was quite noble, and this fate was obviously forced upon her as she just wanted to defend her kingdom, but really, she just went so far that I really don't think it would be appropriate for her to be redeemed. Like, you know, she essentially burned a capital city full of innocents, like hundreds of thousands. However, keep in mind, a redemption can be done in many ways, and it can also be done gracefully. It isn't really so black and white. Either she's just pure evil monster, or she's just this pure angel that was manipulated all this time. It is possible that Blizzard could do like a partial redemption with this storyline. From the info thus far, it does seem like Zoal is keeping these split souls in his vault. So it is possible that we destroy the bad side of Sylvanas and defeat the jailer and recover the Ranger General, and then that split soul might only be redeemed and provided an appropriate afterlife. Obviously, still a bit cheesy, but I think if done tactfully, it could be a really good ending for her character, but I'd say that would require some master level writing. Keep in mind, even back in Warcraft 3, Sylvanas really was forced to serve the Lich King. It isn't really a new plotline, kinda similar to Arthas. I made a whole video on this topic a few months back, but Arthas definitely can be blamed for every bad action he did, as pretty much after he became a Death Knight, he was essentially mind control and he was just a conduit for the will of the Lich King and ultimately the will of the jailer. Sylvanas was pretty much the same, just that she became such in a much more forcible way. She wasn't manipulated into taking a Mournblade. She literally just fell on the battlefield and was resurrected as a Banshee. Again, however, it is a bit too early to draw definite conclusions, as this is from a dreamlike state from her sister's perspective, but I think there is definitely a lot of merit to this information, as I really don't think Blizzard would throw this curveball our way for absolutely no reason, pretty much a month before 9.1, and before we were supposed to finally, after all these years, confront Sylvanas and finish her storyline. Thank you for watching. Check out this tutorial in the new garage by clicking on the screen, and also check out Nodes Academy for videos on real world history and science. See you next time.